Trump had come out this weekend with thinly veiled threats of violence in the event of his indictment in New York. Turns out Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg wasn't about to be intimidated. He sent an email to all employees in light of Trump's call for protests, and he wrote, "Dear colleagues, I'm sure you have seen the ongoing press attention and public comments surrounding an ongoing investigation by this office. Please know that your safety is our top priority. We have full confidence in our outstanding security staff and investigators, along with our great OCA and NYPD colleagues, and will continue to coordinate with all of them. We do not tolerate attempts to intimidate our office or threaten the rule of law in New York. Our law enforcement partners will ensure that any specific or credible threats against the office will be fully investigated and that the proper safeguards are in place so that all 1,600 of us have a secure work environment. This office is full of the finest public servants in the country. I am committed to maintaining a safe work environment where everyone is able to continue to serve the public with the same diligence and professionalism that make this institution so renowned. In the meantime, as with all of our investigations, we will continue to apply the law evenly and fairly and speak publicly only when appropriate." This message reassuring the employees comes in the aftermath of Trump's post on Truth Social, which include messages like, "The far and away leading Republican candidate and former president of the United States of America will be arrested on Tuesday of next week. Protest, take our nation back." And "We must save America. Protest, protest, protest." And of course, all of this is reminiscent of Trump's messages preceding the January 6th insurrection, wherein he wrote, "Big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Be there, will be wild." And of course, we all know how violent January 6th turned, and so by issuing the same call to action, the very obvious point of this by Trump is to have a repeat of January 6th in New York on Tuesday, when he claims he'll be arrested. Because unless he can send his supporters out to fight, to destroy things, to kill someone, or get arrested themselves, he won't be satisfied. Now, of course, law enforcement in New York has already begun to prepare for any impending indictment, knowing, even before Trump decided to threaten explicitly, that this guy brings with him a wave of violence wherever he goes. Here's reports of exactly that from last week as reported by Fox.
Now, when we are learning that the Manhattan DA's office has asked for a meeting with law enforcement ahead of a potential Trump indictment. This is coming to Fox News from a source in the courts. The meeting, which was requested yesterday and has not been set yet, is to discuss logistics for sometime next week, which would mean that they are anticipating an indictment next week. The same source who's familiar with the planning said they will go over security preparations in and around the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Secret Service will take the lead in what they will allow or will not allow. The source cautioned, mentioning, for instance, that the decision to handcuff the president, a former president, or not, they will set the tone and will escort him into the courtroom. There will be coordination between all of us, the source said, but we will defer to the Secret Service. The battle will be between Secret Service and DA Alvin Bragg. They will decide how and when he'll get into the building, and they are not going to leave him. The source believes that the former president will still have to be fingerprinted and processed like every other defendant. So this is a huge development if Alvin Bragg has decided to go ahead with a felony indictment of the former president. This was a charge that the federal officials refused to prosecute on or even really pursue. This was a misdemeanor in New York that Alvin Bragg has decided to elevate to a felony, while at the same time downgrading other felonies to misdemeanors. So we'll be watching this to see how it all unfolds, to get more information as it comes in. Sandra?
And I just gotta say, it really is incredible that this guy who swore an oath to defend this country cannot stop inciting domestic terrorism within it. The extent to which Trump stands in stark contrast to what the role of president is supposed to represent cannot be overstated. And this is something I've said before, but I think it bears repeating. To those Trump supporters who are thinking of heeding Trump's call to action in New York and going to protest, recognize that you would be doing this for someone who does not care about you. He doesn't care about any of his supporters. He views you as useful idiots. Consider the fact that 1,000 people were arrested after participating in the events of January 6th, and guess how many times Trump visited? Guess how much money he spends on their legal fees? He pretends to love you while you're doing his bidding, but the moment you become inconvenient, the moment you lose your usefulness, he will turn away and never look back. He views his supporters as nothing more than marks to pay his legal bills and fight his fights. You may think that you're in a two-way relationship with Donald Trump. You're not. You will give your time, your money, your trust, and possibly your freedom, and in return, you will get nothing. And of course, a bunch of spineless Republicans have already begun lining up at Trump's feet, including Pence and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Kevin McCarthy, which I suppose shouldn't surprise anyone because those people exist as appendages on Donald Trump. And while these public displays of support might help them squeeze yet more donations out of their base and pander to the most extreme elements of that party, I think we can probably reject this notion that Trump getting indicted is going to be some guarantee of victory for him in the future. Maybe in the depths of the Republican primary this will be some boon, but in the actual country, being indicted is not a resume builder. You don't get points for being a criminal. And while that might be a bonus or even a prerequisite in the Republican primary, that might offer some insight into why Republicans keep losing. And yet, will that stop them? No. Republicans will change nothing about their strategy because they're not interested in winning elections. They are focused only on taking them by force. They're focused on pretending they won and then pressuring officials to add votes that didn't exist or to undo votes that went to the other person. And so, in a way, it makes perfect sense that they would continue to take positions that only appeal to the extremists within their ranks because those are the only people that they're seeking the support of. So should we be surprised that Republicans are inciting and endorsing yet another riot at the hands of Donald Trump? Not in the slightest. So I hope that everyone out there who still pretends that Republicans stand for fiscal responsibility or small government or whatever else it is right now recognizes the reality of what today's GOP is. It's not about small government, it's not about states' rights, it's not about family values, it's about extremism, big government, and political violence. The only ways they've exercised their power lately is to tell women what to do with their bodies, to try and cut your earned benefits that you've worked for your entire lives, to protect gun manufacturers amid a surge in mass shootings, and to whip up mobs of people on behalf of lies that are knowingly spread by politicians and conservative news personalities. So you can pretend that the GOP represents what it did 20, 30, 40 years ago, but you are trafficking in delusion. When you cast a ballot for Republicans today, you are endorsing their dangerous, extreme, violent behavior. So good on the Manhattan DA for not backing down in the face of Donald Trump's threats, and I hope Trump's supporters think long and hard about whether their own freedom and their finances are worth throwing away as part of some futile effort to defend a guy who wouldn't do the same for any of them. If Trump was so opposed to being held accountable, he should have considered that while he was committing his crimes. So don't be the sucker who he brings in to clean up his mess for him. Trump wants to lead a party that claims to stand for personal responsibility. Now is the time that he should show some. Before you go, a quick announcement. I've started a Spanish YouTube channel. Democrats desperately need to be able to appeal to Spanish-speaking audiences, so this is me doing my part. To help that channel get going in the algorithm so that we can finally start spreading our progressive message and breaking the conservative stranglehold on Spanish-speaking media, please subscribe and watch a few videos. The link to that channel, called Brian Tyler Cohen Espanol, is right here on this screen. And of course, to see more of my content in English, make sure to subscribe to this channel as well. The link is also right here on this screen. Thanks so much for watching.